Hello and welcome to Ford Hotel Supply, where if you can't eat or drink it, we'll try to get it for you. I am Amber Evans, and I'm here with Charlie Downs, owner of a St. Louis staple, Sugarfire restaurant. Thank you so much for being here with us,
Sure,
Mr. Downs. Thank you. So we could sit here and talk extensively about your food and beverage experience and the conceptual designs that you've had and paved the way in the restaurant industry. However, I wanted to spend the time to talk about what you and your team have done for the impacted of the St. Louis tornado that happened last month.
Okay. Well, we're an ambassador for the World Central Kitchen, which is Jose Andres' organization. So they called us a couple of months ago when we had it impacted by weather, and then again with this larger tornado. And Kat and her team have fed about 3,500 people.
Wow.
And then separately of that, we've done things like we've fed all the folks that are cutting trees down in Forest Park, that whole group of people, and just giving back when we can.
Wow, that's awesome to hear. And we also have Kat online with us, who was responsible of spearheading, from what I understand, a lot of the work that you all did for those impacted. Kat?
Hi.
Hi, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to ask, in terms of the magnitude of what you and your team did for those impacted here in St. Louis, what does that look like? 3,500 sounds like a lot of people, but what does that mean in terms of work that you had to get together and being prepared and so forth, behind the scenes look?
Well, luckily we all have done some larger catering orders and stuff, and we kind of put our heads together and came up with a game plan to box these meals up for everybody. I think the biggest part of it was kind of the menu planning and trying to figure out how to feed these people and make sure they're getting their protein and their vegetable and their starch, so that they're getting the healthiest meal that they can. And luckily, just all like Bill Cardwell coming to help us and having some of our chef teams help us. It came together fairly easily for what it sounds like. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a big endeavor. And I wanted to ask the both of you, we'll start with you, Mr. Downs. What made you choose it? It seems simple to think, why did you choose this way to help those impacted? But why did you choose to do it this way in terms of food?
That's a really good question. Kat, you might have a different answer, but I think the World Central Kitchen is probably one of the most organized groups of people we've ever helped. And so that's probably why we chose them. And then they directed us daily where to deliver, and to usually churches. And, but again, Kat and I think the menu planning, she's kind of glossing over that it's significant. And what they fed people was not only healthy, but plenty. So Kat, give them your interpretation.
I feel like most of us are in this industry because food means family, and that's, you show expression that way. You can give somebody, a blanket or this, that, or the other, but really putting your care and love into a piece of food and then giving it to them, and they have the nutrients they need. You're feeding more than just their bellies. You're trying to fill their hearts with something, and we tried to make meals that were friendly for the groups that were eating, but that's really more of what it's about for a lot of us, is just the family orientation about it. And we're kind of taught when we're younger that when your mom feeds you, it's this loving and caring aspect of it. And I think that's what World Central Kitchen's all about.
Well, that's great to hear. And you can see that in not only in you, Mr. Downs, and your team, your family, and your work family, but also in what you have created here for St. Louis, which you know, with someone of your stature and in terms of the work that you have done in the industry, what made you stay in St. Louis?
I think it's one of the nicer towns in America to live in, for one. I think, you know, we can go to economics, we can talk about a lot of different things, but education, healthcare, it's really a great city.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm here.
Okay, that's
most of my life.
That's pretty cool.
I was born in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
And, you know, spent time in New Orleans and then in Chicago and then in St. Louis. So I had a couple of choices.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Well, that's really awesome. Not being a St. Louis native, you know, I fell in love with the city as well for some of those things you mentioned. So I definitely
Where are you
get
from?
that. I'm originally from Texas, actually, but I've lived all over as well, in Arizona and Tennessee. So Mississippi a little bit. So yeah. Now, in terms of community, Kat alluded to this in terms of food and love. What do you think it says to the community when they see Sugarfire, when they see you all come out and just selflessly give in their time of need, to really reach out to them and give them more than just, you know, a little bit? You all gave a lot. What does that mean to you?
Well, I think to us personally, it means everything. It feels so good to help people, number one. But, you know, you think of the St. Louis metro area and you think of all the other restaurants who pitched in and now all the other organizations that are pitching in. And I just saw some great funding news this morning because, again, as we talked earlier, the real work is yet to begin, and that's housing.
Sure.
It's a major problem.
Sure.
So anyway, it just feels good. Kat, you have a response also?
I mean, I agree with that. And I just want the people that, you know, and we even had some of our employees lose family members in homes. I just want them to not feel alone. You know, they might have their families, but I hope that they feel seen and that it's known that they need the help, and hopes that others will also, you know, pitch in somehow.
Sure. Well, I think it sets a great foundation with your team to be able to go out into these areas and see what this can do for people. Do you have either one of you, do you all have some positive stories or things that you saw, some inspirations that you saw while you were out there? Kat, I'll start with you.
Yeah, actually, one of the last places I dropped to, these people had a system up, and it was so known in the community that it was, you know, dinner hour. So we're dropping food off, and these guys were hustling and walking out to cars and making sure that they're counting the heads of the cars, and they're handing out, you know, 10 meals to this car, you know, 5 meals to this car. And the people that they created basically a drive-through in the neighborhood. And it was just so cool to see that they knew they could come and get that at that point, and they don't have to worry about their next meal or how they're going to cook it.
Sure.
And I really think that over in Fountain Park, they kind of had a whole community in the center there, you know, where that grassy park area is.
Yes.
And they were playing music and kind of just coming together to, like, hey, let's all support each other, and they had different aids out there and everything. So that was really cool.
That's awesome to hear, you know, because as we all know, with natural disasters, it affects everyone of all socioeconomic backgrounds. No matter where you live, what you have, you're impacted. And that's great to hear that you've used food to come and create this community of help and togetherness, which is why we wanted to come and talk to you all about this, because, and I know that you had mentioned other restaurants also did the same thing, which is awesome. And it says a lot about our city and our ability to be able to come together and help.
Can I add one thing?
Absolutely.
I think FoodWorks and Ford Hotel went out of their way to make those kitchens available to us, so we had the space to do 500 meals. Our stores are pretty small, as you can see, and to do 500 box lunches in a store is really difficult, but FoodWorks made it easy.
That's great to hear, yeah.
Thanks to you all and to Christy for pitching in.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's, you know, knowing our owner, Christy Schlafly, it's, you know, that's what she's about. She's all about community.
She offered everything to us.
Yes, so.
Whatever if you need something, call me.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was her attitude.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yep.
Did you have anything else that you would like to add, Kat?
No, I appreciate Charlie saying that too, because that was a huge help for us. And it actually made us able to cook 100 more meals on the days that we were able to use the kitchen. So
yeah, well, we appreciate that. Actually, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Kat. Thank you, Mr.
Nice
Downs.
to meet you.
It was very nice to meet you both, and thank you again for carving out a little bit of time for us.
Thanks for your interest.
Thank you. So, Mr. Cardwell.
Yeah, Bill.
Bill, I understand that you were just as instrumental in helping with the Sugarfire team in delivering food and helping those that were most impacted by the St. Louis tornado that came through last month. Can you tell me a little bit about the inspiration behind that?
Well, I don't know how instrumental I was, but in the aftermath of the horrible tornado that affected so many people in St. Louis, I actually reached out to Charlie and asked if they were participating in doing anything, and a few other chefs had reached out to me and said that they were doing things. And since I don't have a place of business anymore, I was just willing to help anybody that needed an extra pair of hands. So that's how I sort of got involved with Kat and the Sugarfire team. But they were really doing the food, and their team was preparing all the food. Basically, I'm just a pair of hands that help put it in boxes.
But that's great.
And take it someplace. So, but I think in general, the community really, reached out the best they could. A lot of support from various restaurants and various groups. I guess if I had any kind of comment about it, is that like in many situations, the immediate response is great, but the situation is long term, and there never seems to be a solution for that.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
We did it for 2 weeks. Who's feeding those people now?
Understandable. Yeah.
So there's a great community effort right out of the gate, and then of course, I think maybe Kat explained it earlier. They collaborated with the World Central Kitchen, which is basically international organization that goes all over the world for all kinds of situations to help people in need. So, but for some reason, their time limit on the being involved was short.
Well, I think even though it was just for 2 weeks, you all helped bridge that gap between the initial devastation that we saw and with federal funds, I think, coming in to further help those people that were most impacted. So definitely having that transition time that you all filled, I think, says a lot.
I was recalling in the past, actually, if you go back to 93 when we had the horrible floods here, again, a group of professionals, restaurant people came together from New Orleans all the way to Chicago and Minneapolis and put together, big fundraisers for everyone that was affected by it. So I think whenever there's a disaster, unfortunately, people do come together.
Sure. But what does that say about St. Louis, I think?
It's a great community. It's always,
It seems like it. Yeah.
And the support of companies like Ford and U.S. Foods and Cisco and all the other, purveyors that help jump in and give product.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sitting with us, Bill. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.